Bluegrass Airport is an American aviation story. Its remarkable history has been chronicled through a series of oral history interviews. We're speaking with Sam Wheat, who has worked at Bluegrass Airport for 50 years with Avis Rent-A-Car. Sam, how long have you been working at Bluegrass Airport?
I've been here at the airport, just completed my 50th year here at the airport. I remember when the first day that I started out here, it was July the 3rd of 1961. I was all about the airplanes and so forth, because the only airplanes that I've seen prior to that was airplanes that dust cropped, to spray the tobacco for people's farms. And after I have gotten on here at the airport here, I got to see the different types of airplanes at that time. When I started working for the company that is now Avis Rent-A-Car, the owners had a freight delivery, and they also did the cars, at the rental cars. Me and another young man would take turns. I would wash cars one day, he would deliver the air freight the same day, or the next day we would reverse. And then it got to the place where I would just wash the cars, then he would deliver the freight to all of the surrounding towns. And back then, the air freight was known as Swift Air Freight, and the company that I worked for had the Carter's agent for that.
How has your job changed over the years?
When we started growing a little bit, I would watch the rental agent at that time in the old terminal building do the contracts, manually doing the contracts back then, and I would look at them, and then I decided that maybe I could do that. And then they gave me a chance to do it, and I did it. As it came along, we kind of expanded. The airport started growing a little bit. You got to remember, when I started, there was only 3 airlines in the terminal building. And there was only 2 car rentals in the terminal building. So I started watching what she was doing, and I caught on. And then I would start going meet the private aircrafts and that would fly in. That was one of the things. And then I would take the contracts with me, and then I would rent the cars to the customers there. They wouldn't have to get off the airplane and come to the terminal. They could do it right there when I take the car over there to them. So that's where I started then. And then as time progressed, I started training people that came on. And then in early 1973, I was promoted to the airport manager. And that's where I am today. I've done sales. I've done a little bit of everything, have washed cars and so forth.
How many airlines and car rental companies were here when you started back in 1961?
It was a Piedmont on the left. Delta was down from them, and across the way was Eastern Airlines. At that time, there was 2 rental cars. There was Avis and there was Hertz. As you come through the door, we had a very small counter space next to Piedmont on the left. Hertz was on the right next to Eastern Airlines.
Sam, so when you started, you were in the old terminal building.
Yes, the old terminal building was, it was more like a home. Everybody knew everybody. Everybody really helped each other. Even though you was in competition, you would help each other. Many times I would see the airline personnel had a flight that had already gone, but yet they would tell the passenger, let's go over here to either Eastern or Delta or Piedmont and see what they've got, and they would get them on. They would help the passengers out, and the passenger really appreciated it. Of course, that with the car rental back in that time, it was tight. Because it was competitive then. But the airlines seemed like they were a little bit more I wouldn't say they were still competitors, but I think they were telling that customer, look what we did for you, so the customer would remember what you did for them. And I think back in those days, customers did remember that. You got to know customers so much by name.
Can you describe the old terminal?
Yes, in the old terminal building, as you walked in, like I said, to the right was the old restaurant. To the right of that, to the right, as you make the walk down the hallway, to the right of that was Hertz. To their extreme right was Eastern. Then you would go down, and that was like the lobby area, the waiting area. Then you would come across to your left there, and that would be Delta. Then there would be Piedmont Airlines, then Avis Rent-A-Car at that time. Right beyond us was the Weather Bureau, and right beyond that was a little small area for the airport policemen then. We call them guards, but they are called policemen now, Also, as you came in the door, you would go up the stairs, and that would be the manager's office, the airport manager's office. Beyond that would be the manager's office for the tower, the FAA tower, and on top of the airport would be the tower itself. Also, as you came in the door, there was a women's bathroom, and right next to it was a men's bathroom. There was no information booth at that time. Later on in years, the information booth did come in. Also, later on, there was security that came in that was called Whacking Hut. They did the security and so forth, called Whacking Hut. Also at that time, they started doing a little bit of renovating, where Avis was on the left next to Piedmont, and on the right was Hertz next to Eastern, but Allegheny Airlines came in, so Hertz, they built an area where Hertz would move down, and they were, as you come through the door, they were on the right-hand side. And then also National Car Rental came in. They took the space that we had, so we moved down. So as you came through the door now, Hertz was on the right, Avis was on the left. Of course, we both got additional space. The restaurant itself went through a renovation, ownership, and they made a dining area and so forth. And they had, it was really good at that time. The airport manager's office was made just adjacent to the Weather Bureau office, and that's where the manager's office was for the airport. So they moved from upstairs down. Down in the basement part was just of the airport there as you went through the door and down. It was just most like storage, and that's where the furnace was and so forth. When the airport new manager came in, they started building what they call a canopy out front to protect the people from the wind and the weather, because there wasn't anything out there at all, just some shrubberies. And they made around the walkway. Back in the days, too, air freight was mighty big, I like to say. There was a lot of freight that came in, from the east to the various hotels. I know this guy had to deliver a lot of it to the companies that was here, your IBMs, your Square Ds, your Wabco, University. Lobster was flown in for the Phoenix Hotel, the Campbell House. But all in all, I guess the biggest thing was that the airlines itself brought in a lot of people during those days.
How was the food at the restaurant?
Yeah, it was pretty good. I always brown bagged it. But certain days I might get tired. It was pretty good. Yeah, it was pretty good. I ran into a young man that I hadn't seen in a long time. It was as a visitation of a guy that I had known, and his stepdad ran the restaurant, and him and I was reminiscing about it. Yes.
Sam, talk about some of the people you remember.
I would say one of the persons that made a impression on me was Logan Gray, the airport manager. He was a real go-getter. He could give people to do things and help the airport that you wouldn't think possible. I remember incidents that back when I was working for Avis, and Avis had a uniform, and also they had what called a cape that came and made it. It was a leather cape that the girls had to wear, was supposed to wear. Lo and behold, he saw that and he said, "I'm calling someone. I'm calling the president of Avis." He called the president of Avis, and they did away with it. They did away with it. They sure did. And we had a basketball team here we played in the Industrial League. He got everyone to all the businesses around, and he promoted it and gave money himself for us to buy uniforms, and we were the airport Jets. We played in the Industrial League. Now, you know, he was, I really admired the man. I really did. I've tried to find out, but I still have the uniform. I still have the warm. We had the warm-up jackets. We didn't have the pants. We had the shorts. We had the jerseys, and we had the jacket. I still got the jacket today, and that was, you know, that's, gosh, you know, it's been a long time.
What are your favorite stories related to Bluegrass Field?
I don't have any favorite stories, but there are several. You know, there's several. You know, like for instance, back in those days, the airplanes were all prop jets. I guess it was like, we were outside, we heard these, you know, we were going to meet private aircraft, and all of a sudden we heard this loud noise, and we looked around, and there came a jet in. The jet was owned by Pin Oak Farm, Abercrombie's. That was probably the first jet that I recall coming into Bluegrass Field. It was a private jet, you know. It was, I remember it like it was yesterday. It was silver and red, beautiful airplane, beautiful, beautiful. And he when he came in, I mean, everybody just looked at it. I mean, it was just, back in those days, it was something that was fantastic. That had to have been the late 60s, I would say. The late 60s, 68, 69, somewhere like in that area. But it was remarkable.
Were you here when the University of Kentucky Wildcats returned from winning the NCAA championship in 1978?
In 1978, when the University of Kentucky won the NCAA, I don't know, we just had some type of feeling that something was going to take place, not for bad, but for good, you know. So after they had won the NCAA, we had an agent that stayed there because there was also some airplanes that were late that night. Thank God they were late, as the crowd was tremendously. I understand that the Versailles Road was flooded with cars. You couldn't hardly get through. They were parked on the side. You couldn't get up here to the airport itself. There was debris all around the airport. People was up on the stairway. There was an Eagle that was out there that got broken. There was the 3 car rentals side by side. This is on the west side of the terminal building right down here. There was National, Hertz, and Avis. Luckily, our young lady stayed here because she couldn't get out, but there was someone had climbed on top of the offices and fell through and fell on the computer of one of the car rental persons. It was on National and busted it. The carpet that they had upstairs leading to the administration office, they had to replace it from beer or whatever, you know. They said if UK ever win the NCAA again, they'll never bring them through the airport, in which they haven't, through this airport here. It was just something that, it was unbelievable. It was unbelievable. You know, we were glad that UK won, but the demolition of the airport that happened, you know, and that was all in good fun, I would say, but I think they realized later on what had happened, you know.
Do you remember the Queen's visit?
It was, the security was so tight that you couldn't get to see a whole lot. Got to see the motorcade leave, but that's about it. It wasn't a whole lot that you could do, you know, that she was so guarded, so, you know, they didn't want the people to really get close to her and so forth, you know.
What do you remember about the presidential visits?
The Secret Service do a sweep of wherever they go, they do it. And you don't get to see them. You might see it with the motorcade, but everybody has to stay inside. Even if you worked here, they would tell you working with the airport police, they would say, no, you're going to have to shut down at such and such time because the president or some dignitary of that is leaving. You can resume work. Even the guys that worked in the back, they have to be inside the building and so forth. They cannot be out because they've got everybody around, you know, protect them and so forth, you know. And though you see the motorcade, you might be able to see the motorcade back, but you can't get close to them or anything, unless you get a good view of it on TV.
Sam, talk about the opening of the new terminal.
I remember that like yesterday. Everyone was bringing their equipment from the old terminal building to the new terminal building. This was in '76, April of '76. Computer man had already came down, installed the computers, because we went computerized in 1972, we did. Avis was actually the first one to go computerized in 1972. He had already came down and he took our computers from the old terminal building, brought them over here. Me, a rental sales agent, and 2 service agents. We had to move all of our essential stuff over here, but some of the stuff we had to leave over there because coming in that night on Eastern Airlines, coming out of the east, we had like 15 reservations. So we had to stay over there to take care of those customers, and then we brought our other stuff over here. We brought it over here on a refrigerated dolly. That's the way we moved our stuff from there to over here. The essential, the cabinets was already here. We had the cabinet, but the other stuff, the safe and the essential stuff, other stuff, we had to move it over here. And it was about 12 o'clock when we got finished. And that plane got in, I don't know, maybe about 11 o'clock, because it was supposed to have been here a little bit earlier, but it was around 11 o'clock or so, you know. It terminated here, you know. But we were the last ones to move over. Everybody else was over here ready to go for the next morning and so forth. But that was a sad day, but it was a good day. And then maybe a couple weeks later or so, I don't remember the exact time, but I know it was in 76 that they brought in a big bulldozer like, and they had the terminal that old terminal building demolished in a little no time. I mean, it did. It went down. But I miss that, the closeness. I like to say one thing, I guess, the people that I had met in those days, they're no longer around, or they're retired, no longer around. Right now, in seniority-wise, of the employees here at the airport, I'm the oldest at Bluegrass Field.
Can you describe the old terminal?
It was decorated in the mirrors on inside of the old terminal building was all of horse farms, like your Walmart farm, your Spendthrift farms, beautiful pictures, all high along the wall. On each side, as you came through, there was on the left side, you could look up, and on the right-hand side, and if you were coming off of the ramp into the lobby to the terminal building, you could look up, and before you went out, there was mirrors up there of horse farms and so forth. Even right today, when we came over in 1976, the owner wanted to have something to remember the horses and so forth. So that's what we've got on our counter in 1976. We have it as today. It's some horse heads. We have 2 horse heads that the customers used to You don't do it as much nowadays as it did in yesterday's years, but you carry your garment bag with you, suits and so forth. You can hang it rather than take it and drape it on top of the counter. You can hang it into the ring of this horse. And a lot of people right today say, what is this for? Put your coat or your suit or whatever you on it, you know. And that's a good gesture. People are still admired how that is translated, that we keep the trend going about the horses.
Do you remember when Elvis died and they announced it at the airport?
I remember that. I guess one of the other things that I remember too was Elvis, Dr. Martin Luther King, and President John F. Kennedy. Those three were probably the most devastating that was to people at that time. Very, 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 very devastating. I guess some of the people that came through said, "Have you heard about Elvis?" I said, "No." Somebody said it, and I said, "What happened to him?" You know, I said, "Oh, he died." You know, over the years we've lost a lot of important people. But I would say, other than Elvis, it was President John F. Kennedy and Dr. Martin Luther King, Jr. I don't recall them making an announcement. They might have had, because, the announcement could only come, I guess, everybody had what we call the PA system. If the announcement came, it would have to come from the office of the airport manager at that time. I don't recall.
At that time, was Logan Gray the airport manager?
See, we had a Mr. Phillips when I came. Then after that, it had to have been a man by the last name of Bailey, as I recall. I think the last name was Bailey.
Do you remember when the Concorde came to Lexington?
I remember when the Concorde came in. It was so many people out here that they were letting people go on and examine it, look through it and so forth. I did finally, at the end before they left, I did get to go through it. We were so busy during that day. That was something that was remarkable. I don't see how, it's looked so sleek and long on the outside, but yet it's so, it's still small on the inside, But yes, I remember that was one of the coolest days too, to have that here at Bluegrass Field in Lexington, Kentucky.
Sam, any other special events that are memorable?
Some of the remarkable things that really, I think that the general public and the airport employees and their families enjoyed was the air shows that was put on by the Blue Angels. That was really fantastic. That was really one fantastic show. They had it on a Saturday and a Sunday, but I guess one of the highlight things is their formation that when they came in. I mean, it was just so precise. They followed the leader and so forth. But a lot of people would come out and see that, and we can thank the Navy for that. The Navy had them on, and the people that was involved in aviation here was connected with that. That we can thank them for that. And back then, people could come out and see airplanes go and take off, but you can't do it anymore. But a lot of people like to do that. We when we moved over here, we had a observation deck and so forth. People could see that, and so but not anymore. Time has changed, and it's for the better, But I've had people come to our counter and ask, "Can you go through up and see the planes take off?" And we said, "No, no one can go unless you are a ticket passenger." And then they also want to know, well, can we see the planes take off? No, you can't. You might be able to park in the public parking lot and go and walk over there by the fence, which would be to the west there, and see. But that's about it. I think people are still fascinated by planes coming and landing and taking off.
Were you working at the airport on 9/11?
I was getting ready for work on 9/11 at the house, and I just thought, I said, and I was putting my tie on and everything. I always had the TV on. I would try to watch the news, and then I saw this airplane that hit the tower there. I said, "What in the world is going on?" No. Then I heard the man come on, and I said, "This is real." I was, oh my God, you know, it's so devastating. You know, think about what has happened, and you know, it could happen any place. You know, airplane could be hijacked from Bluegrass Field, or anything. You know, and the people's lives that was at stake and so forth. It was just so devastating, and the people's lives that was on the plane, and the people that was inside of the tower. It was the World Trade Center, rather. It was just, I mean, awful, awful. I might want to add too that back in the '60s, that's when hijacking was really wasn't pop. It wasn't pop. It was really, people were doing a lot of that. And I recall on a Saturday morning too, one of the events that took place here is that there was a airplane that was hijacked. I don't recall the airline, but they had several people on board. It was a jet, and he flew into Lexington to get refueled. And of course, they made everybody stay away from the windows and so forth. The hijacker made the young man that worked for the fixed base operator to strip down to his shorts and refuel his plane. And it said that they, after refuel it, they took off, and I believe they went toward Oak Ridge, Tennessee, if I'm not mistaken. Now that was something else that was very, very frightening. And they didn't want to see anybody on the ramp or anybody at all, because then he would start harming the people that was on the airplane.
What was it like to be in an airport that was shut down during 9/11?
During the time that 9/11, as you well know, there was a September horse sale going on. We had several cars out on rent. That's one of the, other than the November sale, that was the biggest sale, the September sale. There was customers that had cars on rent that came in on private aircrafts or commercial that could not get back home unless they drove, because general aviation was actually, the towers that actually shut down. We had cars that were scattered from Alaska to Seattle, Washington, to Texas, to California. I mean, it was unbelievable. But also, we had cars that was coming in. And any time that you have something of that magnitude, that seems like me, there's some type of prankster going on, where they have to do the sweep of the airport. Somebody called and said there was something here. They had to do the sweep of the airport. Everybody had to go outside while they do the sweep. People were coming in trying to, driving in or coming out here trying to rent cars, and we told them we couldn't do it. And I remember distinguishing standing on the curb of the airport. I took some contracts out with me and some keys. I had some people call radio, told them I need the cars. And I was actually doing contracts on the garbage can out here so people could get in the cars and leave. I hope we never have to go through anything like that. People in this world have to go through anything like that, because it was just so bad, so bad. I do know that during the 9/11 that the sales was canceled. The airport itself, I think it was maybe 3 days, but for airlines, but we still had to come. We still came to work because we had people that was coming in by autos. I think some of the airport administration was out, and they got called out, and they had to drive in at that time. Some of the past administration, some of the people that's working here now, they had to drive in from other cities by auto. Automobile rental was good at that time. It was good at that time. It was good. It's just a matter of getting your cars back to you when they were scattered so far away. They were scattered. But we eventually got them all back. We eventually got them all back. It didn't. It took a little while, and took a lot of phone calls, a lot of direction of the people to, can you send my car here, send it here, And in a lot of cases, you have cars that was in smaller areas. You want them to rent them to the bigger area, even though they might be in the wrong direction because there was more traffic, to get them back home.
Talk about aviation in the old days.
You know, we're talking about, aviation a little bit. Let me go back a little bit. I remember, too, during the 60s, when the airplanes was prop jets, that we used to meet the private aircrafts then. At the time on aviation, we had two, we call them FBO, fixed base operators, on the field at that time. That was Bomber Flying Service and Bluegrass Automotive. One of them was a Piper dealer, the other one was a Cub dealer. And then when the private aircraft comes in, that was on Avis and Hertz here at the airport, I was younger and I was faster than the serviceman that worked for them, so I always beat him. I could jump the fence, and I always beat him down to the planes. Now, it didn't work always because they said, well, no, I have a reservation with Hertz or whatever. But there was one particular customer that he said, I'll get a car. You're the first one here, I'm going to rent a car from you. He would actually raise the hood on the car, and if it didn't have a Fram oil filter on it, he would not take the car. It wouldn't rent from you. He had a lot to do with Fram. That was back in the days, but it was fun, and it was very competitive. A lot of the people that were coming on the private aircrafts was lots of twin-engine Beechcrafts or whatever. A lot of your people from the Virginia and the New York really enjoyed it during the Derby time. National Distillers already had customers that came in. They brought in a lot of people from New York down. Of course, we didn't have the interstate it is now. I used to kind of dread it because of the cars would be on 60 and they would stall. People would stall in traffic and be bumper to bumper. So many people. Of course, there weren't that many cars that was air conditioned back in those days. Either we had a few cars that were air conditioned, and what it was a portable air conditioner that you would put in under the dash. We have it wheel and axle on Jefferson Street here in Lexington at the time. Jefferson 3rd would put it in, and then when we got ready to sell the car, we'd take it out and transfer it over to another car, But those were some of the times, and I always loved the July yearling sale. That's when you get to meet a lot of European people that came over. Even though sale might not have been about a couple of days long, but the customers come down and be here for a week. Those were some good times. You'd be completely out of cars and so forth, and the hotels would be filled. But with the technology, that's all changed now. I remember one thing that sticks out in my mind I'd like to tell you about is back in 1963, in January, we had a horse sale going on. That's when the temperature went to 32 below zero. Me and this other gentleman that was working with me, Brother Yates, we spent all day long trying to get people's cars started. Now, you got to remember, we don't have the fuel additive cars now, then that we do now. Cars was at the Springs Motel. Cars was at the Campbell House. These are the old people that stayed there, those places. Your Holiday Inn East. Cars that was on the inside, like the Lafayette Hotel and the Phoenix Hotel, they started. The whole reason was the gas line was frozen up. The cars were aspirated then, And then when cars started being electronic fuel injection, but you still had the car that was aspirated, people weren't really getting used to the car that was electronic fuel injection. What they do, they get out, they turn it, and they flood the car out, And then you had to go and pull the car in, take all the plugs out, and all that, and put in new plugs, then the car would start. People were not used to it, but finally they caught on. But that was one day I remember that it was so bad, so bad.
Talk about the days when rows of private airplanes would line up across from Keeneland's clubhouse entrance.
Yeah, I can talk about when the planes were, was across the field over here. Also, is that way during the race season too. That was a lot of time. It was race season. Fuel wasn't as critical then as it is now. Fuel has gotten so critical now that the aviation, has, like everything else, has really taken a nosedive, you might want to say. That's why, in your airline industry, you see a lot of regional jets to feed into the hubs and so forth for the bigger jets. I think we won't see that anymore. I remember that, the customers used to come in on their private aircraft and park over there across from the clubhouse at Keeneland. They would walk across and so forth, Then when they're over in a day, they come and get it, and then they get to come back, cross the road, get in the plane and leave and so forth. Those days are gone, I think, because of security is one of the things that has happened, and with the price of fuel, and it's gone up so high that I think there's limitations on people owning planes. They probably do more, I guess you would call sharing the planes now, and so forth, like buying into your net jet and so forth. You buy into net jet, and then you pay a price, and then it's available whenever you want to, but you don't have the expense and so forth.
Tell us about changes in the rental car fleet.
Back in the day when I came on, you had the cars, you had maybe smaller cars. Back then, Volkswagen was very popular for the car rentals, and now, from my aspect of it, you had most of your car was 4 doors up until the Mustangs came out, which was 2 doors. But most of the car was your mom and pop type cars. And then then you would have maybe just a very few cars that was air conditioned. And then when you run short on cars, that air conditioner had a key. If a customer didn't pay extra for the air condition, you would take the key and lock it, and then you would rent the car out. But if he would pay extra for the air condition, you wouldn't have to lock it or anything. But you had this on a select few cars. Also, the cars, we paid for the fuel. But back then, but they only paid, they would pay for each mile. Like, depending on the size of car, it could be 6 cents a mile, 7 cents a mile, 8 cents a mile, or 9 cents a mile, or something like that, But it might not be, but might be $6 or $7 a day either, You paid for the fuel, and we always wanted our cars to be, well, Mr. Murphy, when he bought the cars, like your Chevrolet Impalas, not your Bel Air, because the Chevrolet Impalas was 4 doors with no posts. Your Bel Air would be 4 doors with a post. So, it made it look more luxurious with the rolling all the windows down. You had all of that, you get all that breeze and so forth. Station wagon was very, very popular back in those days. Very, we had several stations. We had the Chevrolet Impala station wagons, and we had the Ford station wagons. And also, back then, we had what we call a microbus made by Volkswagen. That was very popular back in the days, microbus. Again, no air conditioning on the microbus. Convertible Volkswagen. We had the sedan Volkswagen, and had the convertible Volkswagens. They were manual tops on them. That's one of the things that people liked and so forth. They put the top down on the Volkswagen and away they go. As compared to today, when the cars that you got now today, of course, they all are electronic fuel injection. You don't have the problem with the cars not starting in cold weather like you did then. The changes is that, if a customer had a flat tire, he would change it. Now they'll call you and say, I've got a flat tire. You know, that's part of, that's the way the world has changed. The customer pays for the fuel. You have a lot of you have a lot one-way rentals now as opposed to those days. You know, you might have a car to end up in Louisville or Cincinnati. I recalled in the old terminal building, we had a Corvair, excuse me. They ended up in Tri-Cities, and my first airplane ride was on Piedmont Airline. They were using Martin 404s at that time, and I got left here about 10:30 or so in the morning, flew all the way to Tri-Cities to get that Corvair. I got in it. I came up the old road of 25 at the time, and I did not stop except to get fuel to use the bathroom until I got out here at the reservoir on Richmond Road. And I got out there, it was about 6 o'clock in the evening. But the car itself was a very comfortable car. The Corvair was. It was very comfortable. The seats were comfortable. It hugged the corners of the road. We had several Corvairs during those times. It was very comfortable. The cars today, you look at one, that you can't really distinguish one car from the other nowadays. They all look alike. And right now you go with classes of cars. We had classes of cars then. You go with the smaller, the large, and like that. But not right now. It's like your ABCs. You know, go for the A up to your largest size cars. More electronics on them. And in some of today's cars, you almost have to be have a degree in college to know how to cut the radios and the air conditioners on some of these cars. I was in a Ford Explorer here about a month ago, and I was going to cut the radio on, and I actually had to pull off to the side of the road to figure it out because it was all touch. And I can see why the law is like it is today about your texting, but they also should include your radios too on some of that, because a lot of it is you take your eyes off the road because you got the punch and so forth. It's remarkable. The technology has really changed, but I just like the old push button radio where you can just get what you want.
When were foreign cars introduced into the fleet?
Well, the philosophy of having Toyotas, we had always we've had Toyotas in our fleet, even prior to them coming in. We had good service with them. And then when Toyota came in, they had their corporate office over there on Harrisburg Road there. That was just a plus for us because they wanted Toyotas. And it worked out very well for us in that aspect of it. We got to know some people that was involved in it, and like I said, it worked out very well for us. But for the general public, it was hard for them to accept it, the Toyota, because of the war. I mean, we offered them a Toyota, and they would just get outrageous. I'm not real mad, but they would say, "No, I don't want no Jap car." That's what they would say, But as time goes on, I guess it heals all. We cannot really keep. If we offer a customer a Toyota car today, they take it. They are one of the best maintenance car we have in our fleet. Very dependable. The ride is good. The public accepts it, and our downtime on it is at a very minimum, very minimum. So from the time they started up until now, they've come a long ways with their product, and they've improved it. And I just love the cars. You might have read in the paper here a 3 weeks ago about a lady that came over here, Hanaka Regier, that married the Methodist minister. We got to know her very, very well. And we still are friends with her today. Whenever she comes through, she always stops by, and we always reminisce about the days. She was the one that had the Toyota people getting cars from us when they were building the Toyota plant. And we owe her a lot today, and she was the instigator, and she knows all by name, and she was just a nice lady. She is a nice lady.
What role did she play for Toyota?
I would say she was like in the capacity, consultant, like I would say. She worked for them, but I think she was also you had the engineers coming in from Japan and they want to make sure that they got their product and so forth. Also, I might add that during 911, that was going through the year of the change, the model change for Toyota. They had several engineers over here from Japan, and we had a lot of cars out to them at that time. This was through another person that was working for them at that time, and they always called us and so forth, and we always took care of them and so forth. And we had a lot of cars out from them. I guess if you want to say it, maybe Toyota helped us through that time. That's because we had a lot of cars out to them, and these were like month to month rentals.
Any comments about dealing with rental cars?
Cars that usually go out and come back. Let me just say this in a nutshell. You would be surprised if the cars could talk. We've had cars come back with, just so filthy dirty. I recall one time a customer, and this was in the old terminal building, come to mind. It was cold that night, and he came back in and said, "There's a cat in my car." And I said, "A cat in your car?" "Well, the cat is under the hood of the car." I raised it up, and sure enough, there was a cat laying on the engine of the car. The tail his leg had gotten scorched, so I called Humane Society, and they came out and got the cat. So that was actually true. Some of the other things I would say that had happened is that I wish that we had the closeness in today's society that we had back in those days. That's missing. That's really missing. That's missing. We just don't have it. Of course, I know that time changes, but I just wish we could be more, get together more, know where every person is, who they are, and so forth. We really miss that. We really miss that. Of course, we're speaking of several generations ago too. One person told me in the old terminal building, he said, I don't know how I know, he must have had a premonition, that said one of these days Bluegrass Airport won't be having anything coming into it but just regional jets. It's getting pretty close on. He's getting pretty close on what he said. Is getting close to what he said. What I do. The people I love, the people that I've met over the years. Customer-wise, I have one customer that I've known for about 43 years. He's in the horse industries. He used to be in Atlanta. He's in Aiken, South Carolina, and everybody knows him as on Dogwood Farm, which is Cott Campbell. I got to know him, and he's just one of the splendidest guys that I've known. One of the nicest guys. And I had several customers like him, but as time changed, people change, they're gone on and so forth. But I enjoy meeting people. I really enjoy meeting people. I love what I do. I guess if I didn't, I wouldn't be here 50 years, plus years at that. It's been a good ride. It's been a good ride. You got to do something. So that's about it. There was another guy that I knew real well too. His name was Mr. Bolin. He was with Philip Morris. He died of cancer. Probably this is 2012. Probably about 12 years ago, maybe 15 years ago. He was with he's the president of Philip Morris, and he was another nice guy. I've known some really great guys over the years and so forth. So one thing or another, they're no longer with us and so forth. But yeah, you're right. Cotton and they are just remarkable. He brought his granddaughter in, introduced me to her and so forth, and then just remarkable. I got to know him in the days when he was in Atlanta, when he used to live in Atlanta.
What about the tobacco business and its impact on central Kentucky?
Right, and also, well, the tobacco used to be good in North and South Carolina and also Virginia. I remember we used to get samples from Pete Lorillard and go bring them out to the airport on Piedmont Airlines to go to the Carolinas. Also during the tobacco season, you have all of these buyers that will come up from the Carolinas. A lot of them will come on private aircrafts, rent cars for 2 or 3 days all week. And then be a lot of them that would fly up and be chauffeured around. The tobacco, I worked in tobacco before I took this job. I did farm work. It's hard. It's very hard. And then the rewards are not that very good, not that good. And I can almost see why the tobacco is gone. They worked so hard in it all year long, and at the end of the day, they haven't got a whole lot to show. They do good to break even, so you constantly, doing this to do that and so forth. But you don't see that anymore. Then they used to come in on the airlines, like I said, Piedmont. They had the pipeline to North and South Carolina and the Virginias, and they used to bring them people in, like I said, on private aircraft. But you don't see that anymore. It's really changed. You don't see none of that anymore.